Welcome back everyone on my Let's Play of Dragoon X Omega II. Last episode we had just finished the aqueducts and we found a card key after we defeated the serpent boss at the end. That card key is going to allow us to access the control panel in the sleg mine that activates the railjet. Once we activate the railjet, basically the rest of the world will open up to us. And once the world is opened up to us, the main thing we're going to do is we're going to get the nanite upgrade that we need to basically class change in this game. So all the class change really does is going to change our overworld sprite and our battle sprite. And it's going to allow us to use level 7 and level 8 PSI spells. So it's not going to be as as many changes as the class change in Final Fantasy 1. Well, like sometimes it allows you to use new equipment, new weapons, new armors. It's just basically it allows Sargon to use the 7th and 8th level PSI spells. But like I said, those spells are really, really good, so getting them definitely make the game a lot easier. So we just fight that little monster there. Now the railjet is active. And we were told that the railjet was at access point 1, and access point 1 is to the south here of the slag mine. I'm going to head over to the right and up, and that'll take us to the railjet. See that little jet on the rail there? We step on it, and now we can just move around on the rails. Just like in the airship in Final Fantasy 1, there are no random encounters on the railjet here. So the railjet's going to open up to the bonus dungeon, the final dungeon to the north, and then 2 dungeons over here to the right. The next dungeon we want to go to is this one that I'm heading to right now, but I'm not going to complete this dungeon right now. This is called the armory, and this is where we are going to find the nanites to get the class upgrade. So I'm just going to head in here right now to get those nanites, and then I'm going to return back to the slag mine and give the nanites to that one robot, and he's going to give me the class change. So I'm gonna also then eventually later on go to the final dungeon, not this episode but the next episode, just to show you can get to it like I said right now, but we can't get into it very deep. We can go in there and actually get one new piece of equipment, but you can't get to the end. There's basically 2 keys that we're going to basically need. Sort of how with the Great Divide we had to get the Sun Key and the Air Key. In order to pass through the Ice Lab, we need an EMP bomb that we will end up getting in this armory. And then later on we need a Source Key to activate the elevator that takes us to the Ark. And that will get in the Deadpool, the other dungeon, to the east of this dungeon. The other place the railjet allows you to go is to that bonus dungeon, the nuclear plant, that we can now enter because we have the anti-radiation pills. And there's also a depository, like a library, that gives basically a bunch of background on this game and the last game. So we'll end up building our mind as well as our body in this episode. So we have a new enemy here, the Fios. It has a few new spells there. Res restores 21 to 84 hit points. Blast is an attack spell that does 30 to 120 damage. And Hyper is another attack spell that does 50 to 200 damage. So pretty tough spells there with that guy. Now we see that odd looking square up there to the top here. That is, we just examine that square, and we get the nanite, and that is the item that that one robot back in the slag mine needs. So I'll just outwarp here, get out of here, and then we're going to head back to the slag mine. We don't have to go back to the first access point we got to. We can just go to this one over here. There's an access point to the left. And we can enter the slag mine from the north part, because the robot that we want to talk with is close to the north here. So Going on down. So what the nanite does, a strange substance. Let's go talk to the robot. Nanite, using this I can finally make my nanomachine. I shall insert some into your body, which will boost your PSI abilities. And now our sprite has changed for the overworld. You look much more powerful, Sargon. I trust my nanomachines are a benefit to your flesh carapace. And now we're able, like I said, to use level 7 and level 8 PSI. So we'll be doing a little bit of backtracking. We'll be heading back to Sanzia to get the level 7 PSI spells. But before that, we're gonna head to the desert real quick, because it's just closer, and pick up the level 8 PSI spells. We also have that one enemy that we have yet to farm in the desert area. Like I said, I was hoping to get him the first time I went to the desert when I went to Tyrus's base, but I didn't run into him, but I knew I'd be making a second trip here anyway, so. But we're not going to make a third trip here, so we've got to make sure, like I said, you're filling up your bestiary. Better get this enemy here now. Now, of course, the game doesn't, have a bestiary feature in it, but like I said, I want to show off 100% of the game, which includes showing off all the enemies, so. We're straight to the north of here, between the palm trees, touch the cliff there, we get the secret PSI shop. Aurorus, that basically restores your hit points to full, and Nova is basically like the nuke spell in Final Fantasy 1. It does 150 to 600 damage to one target. So it took me about 2 minutes of just wandering around the desert there. I kind of cut it out there, just the wandering. To run into this enemy here, the Thrall enemy, a cyborg enemy. We're gonna get 2 really good guns in that armory. I guess it makes sense the armory is where you'd have a bunch of weaponry. When you get 2 guns, a really powerful gun, the rail gun, and then another gun that's a little bit weaker than what we have here now, but it's good because it has a benefit of doing extra damage to cyborgs. So we're going to hold on to that gun, because against cyborg enemies like this Thrall, even the bonus, one of the bonus bosses, the boss of the bonus dungeon, he's a cyborg, and we want to have that gun. It does the most damage to him because it does that extra multiplier. So once again, we use the outwarp to get us out of not only the desert, but also the path to the desert, the cave to the desert. Save some backtracking, because we have some more backtracking to go here. Once again, we're heading back to Sanzia. It won't be the last backtrack we go, because I said we've still got to get 2 of the treasures in that secret room in the passageway from Isenfort to Sanzia. But that's going to be a good place, like I said, to do the leveling up. We got those render enemies, which are cyborg enemies. So once we get that gun, it's called the pulse gun, it's effective against cyborgs. We can come back here and do our level grinding. That gun allows us to basically take out those renders pretty easily. And the good bonus about the renders is there's some enemies that give more experience than them, but like I said, the renders will never run away. Like I said, around level 30-ish, most enemies are going to start basically running away from you. So I think those last 5 levels, from level 31 through 35, to basically beat the game, it's going to be a little tough. So let's heal ourselves up here at the clinic, make a quick save, and then go buy those PSI spells. Still have to sell our old weapon here though, the wave cannon. Buy the PSI, much cheaper. Blitz gives you an extra attack in battle, so now you'll be attacking twice. And fusion does 75 to 300 damage to all. It's kind of like the holy in this game. Or the fade spell, as they called it in Final Fantasy 1. It used to be called, it was called holy, I believe, in Japan, but religious censorship, according to Nintendo of America's policy, they basically changed references. That's why in like Dragon Quest, churches became, imperial scrolls. Stuff like holy became fade or white. So just don't really have, like I said, anything more to spend money on anyway, because we got all our all the herbs we're gonna need for the rest of the game, enough SRMs for the rest of the game. Pills are also pretty good as well. So basically now, all we can basically spend money on if you want to is spend on those optas to basically max out those stats. Like I said, not maxing out those stats really helps. The only one that really helps is agility. That helps with your evade. But the other two stats, the luck and the psych, aren't bugged, just like how they were bugged in Final Fantasy 1. So let's head on back. Like I said, we built up our body. We saw the change in sprite in our character in the battle. When we had a battle. Now we're just going to get some more power, but we're going to power up our mind. Knowledge is power, that old saying goes. So let's just take a quick trip to the library. If you played Dragoon X Omega I, or you've seen my playthrough of it, you know, a lot of the stuff that's going to be said here is going to be, you know, stuff that we already know. But it's nice that they include it here in this game. Because that way, in case if you didn't play the first game, you're not lost. You can pick up the backstory just by playing this game. Game 1 is not required. Like I said, it's nice. So, we got a nice long trip on this rail jet here. Head to the south here. South will take us back to the sledge mine, but we're going to take a detour here. Like I said, a long trip. There's the tunnel. Fly right past Sanzia. Now all the enemies around this area, the nuclear plant and the library, they're basically the same ones that are around Sanzia there. This shares the same domain. Now here's the nuclear plant. We don't want to spend time in there because the enemies there are extremely difficult. Even at level 45, when you're going in to defeat the boss, we're basically running from all the enemies. They're that tough. They're basically like boss encounters on their own. Our ancestors came from the distant planet Shirk by means of the Ark, which is a giant vessel capable of interstellar travel. Basically, every one of these computer terminals that has like a little line on it, you can read something in it. Shirk was besieged by the creatures that lived in the Ark, under the command of Vesti, the techno-goddess. She was driven mad by the unborn child in her womb, a product of interbreeding. That was the Neverborn. The Neverborn inside her was defeated by Nika, the Meta Knight. Fearing the wrath of old enemies with the Neverborn defeated, they boarded the Ark and fled, battling the beasts that still dwelled there. So yeah, we see the enemies here. You got there's Planas, the Morgids, the Cryptas. You get to see the sprite a little bit here. Updated sprite. I think it looks a little uglier than the base one, but teach their own. Upon arriving at this world, Nika sealed the creatures in the Ark. As the people fled in the craft to the surface, it became known as Murka. Millennia passed, and a device called the teleporter was invented. It was attempted to be used to send men aboard the Ark and bring back technology to reverse engineer. But waves of beasts came forth from the teleporter and washed over the land. The battle then should last to this day, for though the teleporter was disabled, the Dark Horde still remains. Some PSI users have strange inorganic molecules in their DNA. What purpose these serve is unclear, as those who have none are just as proficient at PSI as the ones who have them. A little bit of the mystery there. Some people fled south when the demon hordes washed over Murka. They sealed themselves behind a great structure. That's the Great Divide. All PSI users can trace their ancestry to Nika. Her genes were altered to give her psychic abilities and inhuman stamina, a science we have not yet perfected to this day. Most of our technology is vulnerable to EMP emissions due to the tiny amount of current needed to turn on transistor gates. That's hinting at the EMP we'll need to go to the lab. The Ark is powered by a singularity device. It was the acquisition of this in particular that spurred the fatal mistake of opening a gateway to the Ark. And that's the other thing, we're going to have to get the singularity drive to actually get back into the Ark. A curious fact is that while the Neverborn's minions attacked the Amethans mercilessly aboard the Ark, they would not touch Nika, thus she was able to fend off them all. That's curious, but we're going to learn why. Basically at the end of the game. The Ark is gigantic, a small world of its own. There was even a great city there, where our ancestors dwelled for the duration of the journey to this planet. So even though the Ark is really, really big, actually in terms of dungeon, it's actually very small and straightforward. These next two dungeons that we're going to go to, the Armory and the Dead Pool, are actually much more complicated. Like I said, the Armory is there to get the EMP to allow us to access the teleporter to the Ark. And then we're going to have to get the source that will allow us to power up the teleporter to take us to the Ark. Like I said, I'll make a quick visit to the ice lab to kind of show that off a little bit. But in the meantime, like I said, we're just going to head back to the Armory here, which is our next dungeon, where we'll get, like I said, a bunch of new equipment, 2 new weapons, and we'll meet an old enemy. So, take care of yourselves. Have a good one. Thanks for following the playthrough, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. Take care. See you in the next one. Have a good day. Bye.